he'll probably be what fixes everything. He'll probably be what solves everything. You know, the firing the head coach, changing play callers, trading for Devontae Adams hasn't really worked. Maybe Hassan Reddick can be what puts him over the top.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Monster Monday presented, of course, by DraftKings. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman. You know that. 5 teams, 7 years. Every Monday morning, bright and early, I give you my overall themes from the Sunday that was in the NFL, the big takeaways, and then the 2 or 3 things from each game that really jumped out to me and you need to know about your team and the other teams moving forward. I also typically give out the winners after I forgot on Friday. But guess what? I forgot again today. That's what happens when you have a doubleheader. College on Saturday. Then I had Steelers Jets last night. Got maybe 3 hours of sleep, maybe, after driving back from Pittsburgh. So hopefully I will remember the Spread the Word winner via social media or someone that just rates and reviews the show and send it to me, Ross at rosstucker.com, or engages on social at rosstuckerpod, or the sponsor confirmation email winner, someone that takes advantage of any of our great sponsors like Game Time or westshorehome.com/Ross. Love the YouTube shout out. People love watching the show on YouTube, any of the shows, right? YouTube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Still racking up the patrons, which I love. Patreon.com/RT Media. Keep them coming, especially if you want those even money bets in black and white. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
All right, Ross. Despite your lack of sleep, I hope you'd be able to provide us with your themes from across the NFL in Week 7.
I can, and my themes today, Jack, are presented by Labatt Blue Light. Drink some of those bad boys with your friends. Live life to the power of we, especially on the weekends when I can't because I'm driving and traveling and calling games. Always enjoy responsibly. It is really a tasty beer. Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. Here's just a few things that jumped out to me this week, Jack. A couple things that are kind of off the field, right? Reportedly, Tua hopes to play in Week 8. This is Week 8. I probably will have a lot more to say about that later in the week. If that is in fact the case, it is his life, and I support the decision that he chooses to make with his life after consulting with experts and his family and making what he thinks is the right decision for him. I will be honest, I'm not looking forward to watching him play. In fact, I really don't think I want to watch Tua Tagovailoa play football anymore. I think that the specter of yet another concussion and seeing him in that fencing posture again will sort of be hanging over every game he plays, really for the rest of his career. Maybe it'll go away over a couple years if he can stay healthy, but that's a bummer. It's also kind of a bummer to me when these teams hide behind health, right? Like the Titans obviously wanted to start Mason Rudolph at quarterback yesterday. And so they say Will Levis's shoulder, sprained AC joint, he's inactive for the game. He was healthy enough to play. He played last week against the Colts, okay? This is several weeks removed from the injury he suffered against the Dolphins. This is their way of saying, hey, we need him to get 100%. Nobody is 100% at this point. If you are, what have you been doing? So I get it. I probably would do the same thing if I was a GM or a coach and, trying to make the most of a tough situation where your young quarterback isn't playing well, but you want to win the game. But let's be honest, Dr. Chow talks about this a lot. Pro Football Doc, sportsinjurycentral.com. It's really hiding behind health. The last thing I think is important, kind of off the field, to note, Jack, is that Hassan Reddick getting an adjusted contract, reportedly going to report to the Jets today. He'll probably be what fixes everything. He'll probably be what solves everything. You know, the firing the head coach, changing play callers, trading for Devontae Adams hasn't really worked. Maybe Hassan Reddick can be what puts him over the top. Two other things that jumped out to me before we get into the individual games. Quarterback injuries. Jaden Daniels hurts his ribs. He's out for the game. Aiden O'Connell reportedly breaks his thumb. He's out for the game. Deshaun Watson looks like he tore his Achilles. He's likely out for the season. Tyler Snoop Huntley for the Dolphins. He even gets hurt. Tim Boyle has to come in. Might have been the difference in the game. The reason why I point this out, Jack, is it feels like every Sunday 2 or 3 quarterbacks get hurt. This is not a knock on those guys. It just makes what like Tom Brady and Brett Favre and some of these guys did even more impressive. I mean, other than the one season that Brady missed with the torn ACL, I don't ever remember him missing any snaps. And obviously Favre never missed anything until the end. It is ridiculously impressive because it feels like one way or the other, 2 to 4 quarterbacks get hurt every Sunday. The last thing that I want to mention is I really feel for some of these fan bases. You know, I look at the landscape and Cleveland fans, Giants fans, Raiders fans, Jets fans. I mean, Jack, some of these teams have been bad for a while. And they haven't given their fans much to cheer for. And they're tough to watch. And really, right now, for even those teams, what is the hope? What is it right now, if you're a fan of those teams, that makes you excited for what's to come? It's bad. I mean, it's bad, man. It is legitimately bad for those fan bases right now, and I legitimately feel for them. Absolutely no I in football, and Smirnoff knows that. It's a we thing. We experience it together. Tailgates, watching at a friend's house. Smirnoff's the world's #1 vodka, official vodka partner in the NFL, and they're giving fans in select areas of the country a chance to win the ultimate game day experience, from tickets to sideline passes and so much more. Just head to WeDoGameDays.com until November 15th to enter for your chance to win. Smirnoff, We Do Game Days. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please do not share with anyone under legal drinking age. No purchase necessary. 21 plus. Ends 11/15/24. See rules at website for participating area and other important details. Sponsored by Diageo Americas Incorporated, New York, New York.
All right, we'll get into the recaps here, Ross. We're going to start in London. Jags, they get a much-needed win over the Patriots, 32-16.
So the Patriots got off to a good start, but then it all fell apart. Oh, that rhymed. That was cool. You know, the wild thing about the Patriots when you watch them is that Drake May is like the least of their issues. It's the defense. It's the special teams. It's the veterans like Hunter Henry false starting. I mean, the rest of the team is letting down Drake May more than the other way around. And I don't know if you're a Patriots fan, if that makes you feel better or worse. You know? I guess you should feel better because Drake May is doing some really promising things. but maybe you should feel worse because it feels like the rest of the team around him is pretty far away. Kudos to the Jags. I mean, they're down 2 scores early. It looks like they might just pack it in. They battled, man. They battled. And you know what? It's funny because the Jags have paid so many guys, like Christian Kirk and Gabe Davis and the whole O-line, the whole defense. It's the young guys that they haven't paid yet. Tank Bigsby, Brian Thomas. It's like those guys that are the ones stepping up, playing really well for them.
The Seahawks, they snapped their losing streak with a dominant win over the Falcons, 34-14.
And that was in Atlanta, right?
Yes.
Wow. That is super duper impressive. I mean, so much so that I'm going to give that much maligned offensive line, I'm going to make them my Campbell's offensive line of the week. Presented by Campbell's Chunky, soup that eats like a meal. The Seahawks offensive line hasn't been real good this year. And they've been banged up. They've had some guys move around. That was a super impressive performance. On the road, to win by 20, to move the ball the way they did. Yeah, I know they got a defensive touchdown, but that was exactly what the Seahawks needed and exactly what their offensive line needed for them to kind of get their season back on track. That gives them a chance, I feel like, after those 3 straight losses, to remain competitive and stay in this thing, especially in the NFC West until the very end. As for the rest of the game, it's a really bad loss for the Falcons. They had so much momentum. It's just like they can't handle prosperity. They had fumbles. Drake London had a drop, which led to an interception. Even with Bijan Robinson having a big day, the Falcons still lose at home to the Seahawks by 20. I thought Geno had a nice game, even better than the stats indicated. And as I mentioned, that touchdown with the Mafe sack and Derek Hall taking it back for a touchdown, teams don't lose very often when they get a special teams touchdown or a defensive touchdown.
Bills, they blow out the Titans 34-10.
How about 34 unanswered points? 34. It was 10-0 Titans. They were moving it pretty well with Mason Rudolph. He was operating the offense effectively, and they were stuffing the Bills. I think it might have been like 3 straight 3-and-outs to start the game for Buffalo. I mean, it was really an impressive start for the Titans. And then kudos to the Bills. They just kept chopping, and the Titans just kind of didn't have it, right? I mean, Amari Cooper scored a touchdown. Didn't even look like he knew what route he was running. I think he was asking Keon Coleman before the play. Mason Rudolph had, I thought, a nice start, but then in place of Will Levis, he started to get rocked. I mean, it felt like Greg Rousseau was hitting him every play. And then Keon Coleman had a career day for the Bills. They need that from that rookie. I know they got Amari Cooper now. They still need Keon Coleman to have a nice rookie season to get where they want to go.
The Bengals, they get 1 game below 500 and a big 21-14 win against the Browns.
So Deshaun Watson pretty clearly tore his Achilles. SportsInjuryCentral.com, or I guess it's SICScore.com. SICScore.com. They were all over it right away based on the video. No matter how you feel about Deshaun Watson personally or the things that he has allegedly done off the field and settled those cases or whatever, I don't ever root for someone to have a serious injury like that. Disappointed that some of the Browns fans did that. I guess I understand because he's been so bad, and also maybe they don't care for what he's been like as a person off the field. But still don't think you cheer when a guy, especially for your team, gets hurt. And ironically, he was actually moving the ball pretty well on that drive. That was like his best drive of the game. What's so interesting to me about this, Jack, is that DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he was the number 2 for the game instead of Jameis Winston. And so, of course, the first game he's number 2, he comes in. He didn't do much other than a few runs. And then he hurt his finger, so then Jameis had to be the emergency late. The Bengals really were led by Trey Hendrickson and their defense. Second game in a row where the Bengals defense really looked good. And they got enough in the passing game from Burrow to Chase and Higgins.
A last-second kick for the Packers helps them secure a very close win over the Texans, 24-22.
Brandon McManus just got signed off the street this week, and he kicks a game winner and does a Lambeau leap. I mean, when you're on the street like that, you don't know if you're going to get signed at all. That had to be such a great feeling for him to jump into the crowd. I would say that the Texans' offensive line is disappointing me. The Texans' offensive line is not good enough in pass protection as C.J. Stroud's getting battered. Now, they did run it pretty well because I thought Joe Mixon had a nice game on the ground until the end, though. That was a theme yesterday. Should have said that because the Vikings, the Texans, in these showdown games, some of these teams could not grind out first downs late in the game to win. Wasn't the most impressive game for Jordan Love, but he was able to come through in the end, and Romeo Doubs was a big reason why. He is a very, very talented receiver. You can see why he was frustrated.
Anthony Richardson struggles, as you mentioned, but the Colts, they do enough to get a win, 16-10.
He really did struggle. I mean, he is not an accurate passer. They're going to try to work through it the rest of this year. They might find a way to be able to win games like this, but he's got to be better than that. He did run it effectively. I don't know why he's still trying to run over defensive backs. It's just not smart. I mentioned Huntley got hurt, so Boyle came in. For the Dolphins, very winnable game, which would have put them firmly in the mix if Tua comes back this week. You can't have Raheem Mostert, our guy, fumbling, Alec Ingold fumbling, Jason Sanders doinking a field goal. I mean, that's how you lose games. And for the Colts, who are some of these guys making all these plays on defense? Grant Stewart, I actually know him because I did a Houston game when he was there at UConn. Olobi, Sagan Olobi, I never heard of that guy in my life. He's got the ball in his hands on defense.
This game lived up to the hype. The Lions, they hand the Vikings their first loss of the season, 31-29 win for Detroit.
I love that. I love when games like this live up to the hype, don't you? I mean, Jared Goff got off to a slow start, I guess a relatively slow start, but he is on fire. We need to start talking about Jared Goff as like an MVP candidate at some point. That was awesome. Hitting Amon-Ra St. Brown, some of the throws he made. Obviously, Gibbs with the run and catch. The Vikings got off to a really nice start, but they kind of faltered and couldn't get it done late. All they need to do is get like a first down, and they would have won the game. But the Vikings couldn't do it, and so they leave the ranks of the unbeatens. The Lions did blitz a lot more without Aiden Hutchinson. We were kind of curious to see how they would handle that without him, and that is how they chose to handle it.
Eagles, they get a statement win in New York. Saquon Barkley's revenge game, 28-3.
Yeah, and I got a couple things to say about this game. We usually save the Labatt take for later in the week. I'm doing the Labatt take today. It's presented by Labatt Blue Light, the pristine Canadian Pilsner. Enjoy your beers together so you can live life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly. Beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. I have no idea why Giants fans were booing Saquon Barkley. And I really just don't like it. In fact, I would love to ask Giants fans why they were booing Saquon Barkley. The guy gave you everything he had for 6 years. He was pretty much your best player for 6 years. The last 6 years came back from a devastating injury. Did everything right on and off the field. Represented you guys so well. And if you watched Hard Knocks, it was very clear your general manager did not want him back. So he went to another team. And now you're going to boo him? I'm not going to say you should be cheering him. Of course, don't cheer him. He plays for the Eagles. But what are you exactly booing? Oh, he plays for the Eagles. Well, you weren't booing Hurts. You weren't booing A.J. Brown. It really comes across as disrespectful of everything he did for you guys and really ignorant, right? Maybe you don't know how it happened or how it went down. Just bothers me a lot. As for the rest of the game, it was domination by the Eagles after they got off to a slow start. Both offensive lines had issues, but especially the Giants. I mean, the Eagles had 8 sacks. The Giants' offense couldn't do. I mean, that was an epically horrible performance by the Giants' offense, in particular because the Georgia Dogs were good for the Eagles. Nolan Smith got a sack. Jalen Carter had 2. Nakobe Dean had 2. One of the best performances the Eagles defense has ever had. I don't know if that's how much of that's Eagles D, how much of that's Giants offense. Eagles need to clean up their offensive line issues. At least in pass protection, they were pretty good on the run. In fact, so good that I'm going to make Saquon Barkley the hungriest performance of the week. It's presented by 11 Oaks, genuine Wagyu beef, Angus beef, heritage breed pork, free-range chicken, all locally raised here in Newville, PA, but available nationwide online. I've been to the farm. I've eaten the meat. It is awesome. You want to talk about local Wagyu? Visit 11oaksfarms.com today. That's 11oaksfarms.com. Saquon had 175 yards. And I don't think he had a carry in the fourth quarter. He was running past people, making safeties look bad. He was running over dudes. And he once again showed how awesome of a guy he is by not rubbing it in on the Giants by rushing for way over 200 yards. And also by making sure his teammates, Gainwell and Will Shipley, got to go out there and get some carries. Clearly the hungriest performance of the day.
The Rams, they get a season-saving win. They've got help on the way, too. 2015 against the Raiders.
Right. Kupp was not able to play, but it looks like he should be able to come back this week. Kyren Williams scored a touchdown because, of course, he did. He does every game. I don't understand some of the game management and clock management from my former teammate, Antonio Pierce. I don't think you can kick the field goal in that situation. I know it was 4th and whatever it was, but I still think you need to go for it at that point. Going from down 8 to down 5 doesn't do a whole lot for you. Kudos to the Rams defense stepping up. Jalen McCullough had a couple sacks, and Jared Verse is one heck of a rookie for the Rams. For the Raiders, Brock Bowers, again, is like the main positive.
Jaden Daniels, he exits early, as you mentioned earlier in the show, and he stays out in a 47 beatdown of the Panthers.
Thought about making the Commanders the O-line of the week again. 421 yards. Now, the problem is the Panthers' defense is just that bad. They're just that bad that I couldn't do it. But it was a really nice performance. They got the pick 6 from Dante Fowler on defense. The issue for the Panthers now is not only we know their defense is bad, but now their offense isn't even holding up their end of the bargain these last couple games.
49ers, they moved to under 500 with a 28-18 loss to the Chiefs.
It's ugly right now for the Niners, and it looks like there are reports, sick score, Sports Injury Central thinks that Brandon Ayuk tore his ACL. Boy, that would be bad. That would really be bad. Deebo Samuel played 3 plays, but he was sick. The key to the Chiefs team is their defense. Steve Spagnuolo, what are the odds that the Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid team would have arguably the best defense in the league? Certainly one of them, and Purdy turning it over in the red zone just can't happen. Wasn't a great day for Mahomes, but it seems like he always does enough to find a way to win, especially with his legs.
And a game might know a thing or two about. The Jets, they continue to lose despite getting reinforcements to the Steelers, 37-15.
Well, let's start with the food. Steelers always have a decent salad. Then they've got sandwiches. It was pastrami sandwiches. I had a couple at halftime. Man, they were good. But before the game, I had prime rib on a bed of lettuce. That was a solid performance from the Steelers. I'll give them an A- in the press box. I was appreciative of that. The Jets got off to a really nice start. Rodgers is throwing the ball, had their best drive of the season. They're up 15-6. They're actually up 2 scores after the 2-point conversion. Then it all went downhill. Rodgers tried to get a little bit greedy at the end of the first half, and Beanie Bishop had a terrific interception, and that started a 20, how many unanswered points? 34 unanswered points from 31 unanswered points from the Steelers. Bishop gets another interception after Garrett Wilson has the ball bounce off his chest. The Jets weren't able to do anything on offense the rest of the game. Steelers are blocking field goals. Najee Harris is running. Crazy long drive. Next thing you know, it's 37-15 Steelers. Big performance for them. Back to the drawing board for the Jets. I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. I love love. I love you telling somebody how much you love them. And I love sending you a signed autograph in the mail if you send me your signed receipt via email, ross@rosstucker.com, backofficescheduler.com, humanheadnyc.com, Sporticulture, Pizza